Hello and welcome everyone to another episode of the GRL podcast. This time round we were over in Asia, in China actually, for the Shanghai International Circuit. Another quite debatable track probably for some drivers, not the biggest favorite for most of them, but we were racing there for the second time in GRL history. As we were there for season 1 as well of one of those 12 rounds. This time out, it was round 19 to definitely guarantee us some action-packed on track and wheel-to-wheel racing. So, yeah. As said, very, very close racing, and I just head over into Division 1, but also here Blade once more. So in Division 1, we had actually Blade winning the race once again, so it was back-to-back victories for the Williams driver, with Rage in second, Ford coming in P3, with Bourbon in P4, the Challengers driver, then myself in P5, Sora in P6, Partik 7th, Otto in 8th, CRT Steph making his season 3 debut in P9 for AlphaTauri, and Giza Torpen picking up a single point for Alpine. Looking at the driver standings, we see that the two-way fight has just become a three-way fight now, because Sora leads still with 260 points, but he's only 7 points ahead of Bford, who is on 253, with Blade only 4 points behind the Mercedes driver on 249. They've got Razi on 163, Rage on 105, Ninja on 74, and Partik only 1 point behind with 73 points. Then we've got Michael Dale still sitting on 71, Gary the Goat on 67, and myself on 55. So especially at the top of the championship, it's very, very close, but we'll come to that later. Looking at the constructor standings, Williams have almost wrapped the championship up, but not quite yet. They sit on 413 points, which is the second biggest amount a team has scored so far, behind Alpine in Division 2. Then we've got the Red Bull on 333, Mercedes on 279, sitting in third. Alfa Romeo then on 235, with McLaren on 228, Aston Martin on 152, so already more than 70 points behind. We've got then Alpine on 149, so slipping behind the Silverstone-based team, with Ferrari on 88 points, Haas on 75, and AlphaTauri on 48. And I'm quite glad that, as said, have the race winner from last week and this week next to me. Blade, I mean, championship is back on, isn't it?
Yep, yep. Yeah, definitely. Very, very happy about that result, and yeah, certainly makes things a bit easier for me because I think I've always been hovering, 30-ish points off the title lead for quite a while, to be honest. And well, I think these two big results, especially with this being a sprint weekend and the biggest haul of points I think I've ever gotten in GRL. Yeah, it came at a perfect time, and really from my end, during the weekend or during the Monday, there was, no complaints really. I think, I could nitpick a few things. Maybe my quali lap wasn't the best, but I still managed to get pole. Sprint race, didn't have the best of starts, but still managed to get back to the lead by the end. And I mean, nothing really went wrong in the race at all. So yeah, I mean, yeah, what a great time to have. Probably my best weekend, and really has put me back in this championship. So very pleased about that.
Yeah, definitely. And with Sora once again losing our points in both sprint and race, that definitely helped to close the gap down even more. And Ford as well gaining on the Red Bull driver, with a podium in the actual race. And the sprint helped him as well to get up the order in the sprint race, because the race pace definitely is one of his best skills so far. I mean, looking at the team standings, Williams already is very, very close to wrap up the championship this time around Kota. Sadly, there won't be an actual USA livery from the Williams team. Potentially some helmets we might see, but yeah. Overall, looking at the season, I think Drazi himself can be quite proud about what you've achieved so far because Sora and mostly Michael definitely were a strong lineup as well. Mercedes struggle obviously with having two great drivers, but I guess that's a very nice topping at the end of the season, anyways, to probably win that constructors championship in Division One.
Yeah, I think yeah. Me and Jersey have been a pretty strong lineup. We both have race wins, which I'm not sure how many other teams have that. Probably Alfa Romeo, although their lineup has changed, you know, all
Yeah,
the
yeah, they
time.
do. Yeah,
But yeah, yeah, I think me and Jersey can be pretty happy about our performances over this season. I think Jersey earlier in the season was in the championship lead, and obviously he didn't have the strongest middle of the season, and yeah, got pretty unlucky last race. But yeah, I think overall in terms of the constructors, yeah, we've I think we've been the strongest team for quite a lot of this championship. I think we've led the constructors for quite a few rounds. I think for the last 5 or 6 rounds, maybe even 7. So yeah, I think we can both be very happy, and I think we only need to score a couple points to become constructors champion.
yeah. I think it's
Constructors champions, yeah,
2 points actually, so that
yeah.
seems
So
possible.
yeah, yeah, I think that's very much doable. So yeah, uh, it'll be nice to get the first F1 championship out of the way with. So yeah, looking forward to that.
Yeah, and obviously, as said, we should come back to that drivers' championship because it's probably the most important battle we have right now, alongside the overall constructors championship. Obviously, I mean it's 11 points between three drivers of three different teams, which is very rare to see. I mean, we had two-way fights in the other 2 seasons, but now it's actually, as said, three individuals battling it out. I mean, Kota, as we saw throughout the paddock already from different practice sessions, seems to be a little bit different compared to other tracks because the potential is a bigger field spread. Also, different drivers struggling with different sections of the circuit. Also, quite some tire deck going on, and a difference in qualifying and race pace. Obviously, some might be strong in qualifying, some might be strong in the race. What do you think? Do we have to look out for in Kota, as you'll probably fight at the front in Division One as well?
Yeah, I mean, hopefully there will be. So, yeah, fingers crossed. Yeah, it'll be interesting. I think quality. Well, I mean, you say there might be a bit more field spread, but I mean, you'd never be surprised if there's more field spread, considering we're pretty much separated by tenths in Division One throughout the whole field. So, yeah, I think it's definitely a less strong track for me. I'd say I think France and China was very strong at. So going into USA, I don't think I'll be at quite the same level, but you never know. Hopefully, it will be at a high enough level that I'm still ahead of Sora and B Ford. So yeah, and I think setups as well it'll be quite interesting to see. I think everyone will be running roughly a similar amount of wing. I think, but even little bits of differences in wing can make a big difference in straight line speed. So, we could see people flying down the straights and make it very hard to overtake them. So, yeah, it'll be interesting, definitely. And yeah, hopefully on my end, I can maybe instead of being 11 points behind, be 11 points ahead in the championship, as unlikely as that is.
Yeah, I think people flying is actually a good spot because then we can head over to Division 2 where we already saw a car flying around this season, which obviously was distant barred, but not this time around because Sinks Motion won a China on his debut race. Siege finished in P2 to pick up some solid points on McLaren, then the two Alpines in P3 and P4 with distant barred picking up the final podium spot, and Jackster with P4 who had to finish the race with wing damage after collision with the race winner. Then we've got Jesper on his debut on P5, Marlo in P6. Blonde, also another SLR driver on his debut with P7 for AlphaTauri. We've got Gia Sedan in P8, Amos Cole in P9, and Wenise, another debutant. This time for the Williams team, making it a P10 finish. So double points for Alpine and Williams. Looking at the driver standings, you have to say that it's still very, very close at the top with Jackson 245 points and Distant Bard only 7 points behind on 238. Slappers due to not participating and also missing probably out on the US Grand Prix, basically out of the championship now as he still sits on his 206 points. Then we've got Otten 156 in P4 with Lloyd on 119 points in P5, so maybe he can push for at least P4 in the championship. I've got Chia Sedan on 94 points, Clev on 83 points, who definitely had an interesting qualiband to serve actually at China, but we'll come to that later as well. With Siege on 77 points, Codename Delta on 65, and Omalo on 32 points, getting up to P10 in the driver's standings. Going to the Constructors' Championship, as said, Alpine already officially won the Constructors' Championship last week. Now they sit on 501 points, almost double the amount of P2 Ferrari with 253 points. And we've got Alfa Romeo getting up into third with 217 points. Aston Martin then just behind by 1 point and 216, and Red Bull themselves also only 1 point behind on 215. So Red Bull actually drops by 2 positions. So these few positions could prove costly in the overall constructors as well. Then we've got Mercedes on 176 points, Haas on 129, Williams, who sit third in the overall constructors, on 118, AlphaTauri on 95, and McLaren gaining some crucial points on their competitors like AlphaTauri and Williams, but still in last place with 85 points. Was definitely good to see, I guess, Blade, that Distant Bard could, both in sprint and main race, gain some crucial points on his championship rival Jackster. But we talked about penalty points last week, and Jackster crashed into the race winner. That's probably not the approach he should take for the upcoming 2 final races of the season, right?
Yeah, I mean, losing a bit of front wing is definitely not the best way to approach your racing, but yeah, I think unfortunate for Jackster to get some front wing damage because he was looking very good, challenging for the win, but I think he was a little bit too aggressive into turn one, which lost him a piece of his end plate, which I think we saw was pretty crucial because yeah, I think it dropped him from P2
Mm,
potentially fighting, yeah, with or P1 all the way down to P4 behind his main championship rival. So yeah, I think this could, when it's this late in the season, every point dropped is very important, and yeah, these could be some important points for Bard because definitely this could be the difference from him taking the title and him not taking the title. So yeah, I mean, you can always rely on Bard to be consistent and up there, not really tangle with too many drivers. So I think Jackson needs to maybe be a little bit more careful, and he can, I don't know, potentially see out this championship. But we'll see because you never know.
yeah, code, especially in the first sector, the opening lap is very interesting usually, and you can basically see if contact happens, it's usually some quite big contact actually, with some wing damage as well, which we obviously don't want to see, but definitely heats up the championship battle. As we said last week with the penalty points and not quite being the same out of those two drivers. I mean, even though Jackster got wing damage there, he recovered, but kept a P4, so he didn't lose too much. Another driver, for example, took an even worse approach actually, which was Clever, who actually had a quali ban this week around but got pole position. I think he hasn't quite got the point of a qualiban yet. I'm sure he enjoyed his only pole of the season. He won't get any more because we'll have two qualibans to serve, and we hope he serves them. Otherwise, there will be some race bans in place. I mean, wasn't a very smart move by him, but probably was quite a typical Haas move, right?
Yeah, has masterclass, I'd say. You know, definitely what you want to be doing, giving yourself more quality bands. Yeah, I mean, I guess at least you can say he's the first GRL member to get pole of a quali ban. I think that's right. So
Yes,
it'll be in the history
correct.
books. Yeah, he just wanted to be in the history books, I'm sure. So
Yeah, probably.
yeah, so he's got that going for him this season. So congratulations to Clever.
Yeah, definitely wasn't ideal. I mean, he's still in the battle with Dan, but I guess that will be quite difficult. He might even lose a position to Siege, who is on a good run of form as well. But yeah, that's Division 2 for this week. So I'd say let's head over to Division 3. In Division 3, it was a back-to-back victory action actually for Owen, because he didn't only win the sprint and the main race this time round, but also made it actually 3 P1s in a row, because he also won last week round in France, round 18, but this time we're at round 19, where he won for Mercedes instead of Aston Martin. And we've got Essela Jam in P2 for Alfa Romeo, with F1 XL Kimi making it another podium for the McLaren team in P3. And we've got Giuseppe Beastie in 4th, Jobbo in P5 for AlphaTauri, dropping a few points to his rival Jam. We've got Kiksora in P6, Essela Ham, another P7 for him like last round. Formula FSM returning to Groundeffect Racing, this time in the outfit of Aston Martin, basically replacing Owen in their team compared to last week in P8. C46 Exotic on his debut for the Ferrari team as reserve in P9, and then Fernazzo in P10. So as you can see, McLaren, Alfa Romeo and Ferrari are the only three teams making it the double points finish for themselves, so they definitely going to be relieved with that. Looking at the driver standings, you will see Esther Laham has finally done it. He's confirmed Division 3 Drivers' Champion of Season 3 in the Ground Effect Racing League with 244 points, so well deserved to the Williams driver. Then we've got his brother Esther Jam on 188 points in P2, with Jobbo 10 points behind the Alfa Romeo on 178 points. We've got a huge gap to Kiksora on 81 points, HN Nolan then on 79 and Heated on 71, so those two drop compared to the reserve driver. Some Pikachu then on 69 points, Thomas on 63, Owen already up into P9 of the championship on 56, and F1 XL Kimi with his podium also jumping into the top 10 of the championship with 54 points. Looking at the team standings, though, it's quite close to still between the top two, because Williams sit on 357 points, with Alfa Romeo on 342, so 15 points between them. So Estela Ham and especially his teammates on Pikachu really need to fight hard now with the Alfa Romeo team of Estela Jam and Chia Beastie to hold them off, because in the recent rounds, those two have proven to be the better duo on the grid. AlphaTauri then on 245 points, extending a little bit the gap to Aston Martin again on 228 points. Haaston on 175, with Mercedes 13 points behind on 162. I've got McLaren and Alpine on 134 points, both of them with McLaren edging ahead of Alpine because of the better top results. Then we've got Red Bull on 84 points and Ferrari on 66. I mean, we're talking about a spectacular debut win for Owen. I mean, basically with the sprint winner China, him being P1 in all of the last 3 actual race sessions, it's even more remarkable. What do you make of Owen really showing his pace recently?
Yeah, definitely good to see that someone else in Division Two can not Division Two, sorry, Division Three can take back-to-back wins because as we all know this championship has been pretty much dominated by Ham, who of course congratulations to him for winning the championship. I think definitely a big story this weekend. But yeah, back to Owen. I think it's a bit of a statement, especially top all 3 sessions. It's shows that he's definitely looking to do deploy the Nico Rosberg strategy and win all of the last races and take a championship charge maybe next season if he decides to race. So yeah, definitely good to see a new back-to-back winner because there's only been 3 back-to-back winners I think this season in Division 3.
Yeah, definitely. One of only a few to make it back-to-back victories, and especially as you said in a division where Ham has pretty much dominated all season. Well, all season, but since he joined, it's definitely good to see that someone else can really fight up top with him. And Owen also made a beautiful double overtake in the sprint race to move himself from P3 to P1. Yeah, that's your Division 3 standings. Once again, congratulations to Ham for another title in his gallery, pretty much. GRL Division 3 Drivers Champion is now on there as well. So let's head over to Division 4 now, where it was Jakub once more to win not only the sprint but also the main race for Alpine. Then we've got in second Ronnie Rosie. He definitely kept close to that rear end of the McLaren, but in the end, of the Alpine, sorry, but couldn't make it a P1 in the end. Then we've got Jacob Brown with his qualiban in P3. With Jamie Hobbs also had a qualiban, so the actual P2 and P1 in the championship both had to serve qualibans, but then ended up in P3 and P4. Then we've got Andrew in P5, solid race for him, with Michael in P6, Tweaky Scorpion in P7, Krigmed after an incident at the final corner in P8, Maldonado in P9, and new joiner Philippos for Mercedes in P10, while his team had actually got pole position. Looking at the driver standings, Jacob Brown extends his championship lead. Actually, he now leads by 14 points because he sits on 232 points, with Hobbs on 218. We've got Jakob on 174 points. So despite a sprint and race win, he's now officially out of the championship contention. Ronnie then on 145.5 points, keeping Jakob not at bay, but he's staying close to him at least. So within 30 points, there's still everything possible for the McLaren. And we've got Krigmed on 136, who still also wants that P3 in the championship. With Andrew on 89 points, maybe he can get the 100 come Brazil. Rex then on 83.5 points, with Michael on 64.5, Raven West on 62, and Dobby on 48. Going to the constructor standings though, AlphaTauri have wrapped up the championship there, so while Jacob Brown is still fight for his driver's crown, him and Krigmed have already done it in the team standings with 429 points, 128 ahead of P2, which is the Scuderia Ferrari, and 301 points. I've got McLaren at 251 points in third, with Alpine at 239. So while in the drivers, Jakob leads Ronnie. In the constructors, it's McLaren At least Alpine, so we're definitely on for a very interesting fight for P3 in that Constructors' Championship. I've got Aston Martin on 159 points, 80 points behind Alpine, and Williams only 4 points behind the Silverstone-based team in the British Racing Green. Then we've got Haas on 139 points, with Alfa Romeo on 128, Red Bull on 91 points, and Mercedes on 58. So compared to last week, Mercedes even lose one more point to Red Bull. Well, Jakob and Ronnie definitely took the time to shine while the top two in the championship had to serve qualibans, and one of them will have to serve another one, which is Jacob Brown. Well, Hobbs will start every race of the season from last place. So definitely good to see that Jakob and Ronnie, if they get the chance, can still fight for wins, right?
Yeah, definitely. We've seen they've been very quick drivers throughout the season, and yeah, I think this performance proves it that obviously Jacob and Jamie have been the very strong drivers in this division. But when they're given the opportunity, they'll make the most of it. And yeah, they certainly did, coming first and second. So good job for them. Obviously, they'll be looking to take a third position off each other, the final spot in the All Star race. It's looking good for Jakob, but obviously with the P2, Ronnie's definitely not giving up just yet. So it will be interesting to see if he can manage to take that third position off Jakob from the next two races.
Yeah, definitely. And with the US Grand Prix upcoming, I mean, we could probably also talk about one of our Haas drivers, Tweaky Scorpion. I mean, a driver from the US in a US car of the Haas at the Circuit of the Americas. I mean, that would be a fairy tale story pretty much if Tweaky Scorpion could maybe fight for a podium there. Obviously, the top 5 or 6 in the championship seem to quite have the edge over the rest of the field, but with Hobbs and Jacob Brown once again having a qualiban to serve, and I think a few other drivers do as well. Twiki Scorpion definitely doesn't. I think it maybe is a possibility to see him on the podium. I'm sure racing at the Circuit of the Americas will give him an extra push to get his first Division 4 podium.
Yeah, definitely. I think yeah. What if obviously given the chance, he a big chance to get his first podium next week. So maybe a bit of pressure, but what better place to do it than at your home Grand Prix in an American-based team. So yeah, I'm sure he definitely has ambitions to get a podium at the very least. Never know. Some chaos could occur and he could take the win, which would be probably a dream come true. So yeah, we'll have to see. Definitely, Berg, a better chance to win the race or get a podium if the two, championship leaders aren't on pole or near the top five. So yeah, we'll see what he can do. I'm sure definitely he'll be trying his hardest to get that podium.
Yeah, definitely. We have a few US drivers all spread all over the grids, really. But yeah, we'll see how Tweaky Scorpion will be doing in the Division 4 race. For now, though, let's head over to Division 5, where Championship leader Maka made it back-to-back victories. So this seems to become a trend now in the last 2 rounds of the season. While he finished, I think, still on the podium, but not P1 in the sprint, because Boosted Abi won that Chinese sprint qualifying race, whatever you want to call it. It was Maka in the main race who took P1 with Paloma in second. So probably from their perspective, the wrong driver to finish on the podium. Well, Boosted Abi finishes in P3, so the sprint winner picking up some solid points in the race as well. Old Sport then in P4 with RM James with another solid points finish in P5 for Ferrari. Lewis F1 then in P6 with White Josh in P7. Gasser Buchanan in P8, Graney picking up his first points of the season, and HK in P10. He's running in the top 5 when the final lap started, but a puncture on his soft compound tyres really shredded his race result and maybe his championship as well, because if you look at the championship now, you can see Maka is leading by 37 points, and with only 54 points left to score, the Red Bull driver has a massive chance now to wrap up the championship already at Kota. So Heikki definitely needs to win both of the remaining races and can only hope that Maka has some tough luck upcoming, because yeah, that'll be interesting. But as said, Maka on 237 points and Heikki on 200. Then we've got Boosted Abbey, who finally clinched at P3 with 142 points, Lemon, who apparently retired from the season on 121 points, and Paloma on 111. Masala then on 93 points, with Batsy on 85, Matt on 69, and also Chase Street on 69. Kazza Buchanan then on 57 points in P10 of the driver standings. In the Constructors' Championship, Aston Martin have almost done it as well. They lead with 348 points, while McLaren sit on 274. Then 239 points for Red Bull, with Alpine on 224. So those two teams switched positions, but there also are some other switches as well, because Williams on 185 points, level on points with Alfa Romeo, but due to more race wins for the Williams team, they clinched that position from the Alfa Romeo Sauber squad. Then we've got Ferrari and AlphaTauri also level on points, but due to more wins, Ferrari is ahead of the Faenza base team. Then we've got Mercedes on 131 points and Haas on 127. So like last week when we said it was close, it all gets even closer now, especially between the bottom 4 teams, while Williams and Alfa Romeo fight up top, so do Alpine and Red Bull. So yeah, in the driver standings, it was quite close. It isn't that close anymore, but in the team standings, there's definitely everything to fight for still, especially as said in those bottom 4.
Yeah, I mean, obviously first in the drivers, I think, yeah. Definitely unlucky for Heike, you know. I know what it feels like to get a last lap puncture, so yeah,
Almost
it's
forgot that.
it definitely it definitely hurts, and especially when it's 3 rounds from you know, the end of the season when you're in with a shot at the title. Yeah, definitely really hurts. So yeah, not looking good for Heike. Maka doesn't really need to score too many more points to wrap up that title, but there's always a chance that Mecca has a bad round next time out, and Heike will definitely be looking to take advantage of that. But I think all Mecca needs to do is score. You know, it doesn't have to be a win. He doesn't have to go all out. He can just score, a couple points, and he'll be looking quite comfortable for that championship title, even if he doesn't win the race. And or even if Heike wins the race, he will still be looking good to win the title. And as for the constructors, of course, yeah, I mean, it's always been really close in this division. Um, even Haas at the bottom of the standings are, I think you have to say, quite significantly above the 100-point mark, which, in some divisions we still see some teams below that 100-point mark. So goes to show how close it is. Probably, I don't know for sure, but probably the smallest margin between the top constructors team and the bottom. So yeah, definitely good to see in that department, and I think we'll be able to see a few teams looking to jump up a bit more in the coming races. So yeah, we'll definitely see what happens in that department as well.
Yeah, definitely quite a small margin, just over 200 points. I mean, still 200 points, but obviously from P1 to P10, and someone has to be first and someone has to be last. But yeah, as said in the driver standings, I mean, this has been a massive blow now for Heike, because like 2 weeks ago we said the championship is really on. It's been so close all year. and then there was a slight drop with Heikki not attending a race, and suddenly he was back in the championship. But now yeah, that puncture definitely didn't help the Aston Martin driver, and with Mac also winning, basically picking up the pieces, wasn't an ideal weekend for him. Especially I think Macas and Wheel winning on probably one of the biggest pet tracks on the whole calendar. It's not ideal for Heike either. But yeah, you probably have to respect also the performance of Boost, that we haven't talked about him too much yet. A P1 in the sprint, a P3 in the main race. I mean, especially from your perspective out of Williams, that surely almost the maximum you could expect, especially if you race like drivers of the caliber of Maka, Paloma, and AK.
Yeah, definitely. He's been performing very strongly these past 2 rounds, or past 3 rounds, I'd say. Well, actually, he's been scoring points quite often, but yeah, particularly with the P4 last time out and the podium this time out, and obviously winning in the sprint, they're big and very valuable points here at Williams for our overall campaign. And I think you have to say as well, in the team standings in this division, as we've mentioned quite a lot, it's so close. I think those pretty big points. I guess 20 points would be quite will be quite crucial. I think come the end of the season for their own divisions campaign. So yeah, hopefully you can keep it up. Definitely, it'll be tough to beat the very quickest in the division, but I have faith in Boosted. I think he can definitely be up there with them. So yeah, hopefully maybe he can sneak in a win in these final 2 rounds if any interesting battles happen between the championship rivals next race, because definitely I think Heike will have to go all in next time out.
Yeah, just looking around at the race results, and it pretty much has eagle-eyed his best result of the season for the third time now, which is a third place. It was his third podium of the season, and all the time it was a third place. So I'm sure he's pushing for that top two finish, or especially a race win in the main races. I mean, he proved it in the sprint, and I think we both can agree that he definitely can keep up with Mac, Paloma, Heikki, and obviously all the others, especially on his day where he might at some stage be unbeatable. So there's 2 races left to finally be a winner in Division 5. Looking at Division 6, though, we had a newly crowned champion in Echo. And what did he do? He didn't turn up. The man is already on holiday, apparently. J-Tilp wins at China after some interesting start procedure infringements we'll talk about later from the top two, with Rockingham making it his debut podium appearance actually in Division 6 P2 for the AlphaTauri driver. Then MAR Harry, who just joined in very, very late because he suddenly could make the race, picks up a podium for the Williams team. So happy days for Williams in Division 6 with Cal in P4, Vietex in P5, Luke Ghosty in P6, Flying Luge in P7, 10th Cannon in P8, Apex in 9th, and Jared Stewart from McLaren in P10. So actually only one team scored double points, and this team was Mercedes. Well, let's have a look on what this wet afternoon at China did to the standings in the drivers. Well, Echo, as said, still sits on 269 points due to not attending, but J-Tilp lights up the standings really, because he's now in P2 with 2 rounds to go on 159 points, with Ladlow only 7 points behind on 152. We've got 10th Cannon on 149 points, the attacks on 143. Then we've got his teammate Ali on 91 points, and Panda on 89, Flying Luge on 82 points, and Kel on 68, with Ace Guy rounding off the top 10 on 60 points. On the constructor standings, we can see Aston Martin extends the championship lead despite Apex winning the sprint for the Haas team. He couldn't deliver in the main race due to various reasons. So Aston Martin 353 points, with Haas on 319 and Mercedes on 282. So they are pretty much out of this constructors battle now. Alfa Romeo then on 250 points, only 3 points ahead of Alpine on 247. And the podium of Williams definitely helped this time around with them being on 127 points, but they still have a very small gap to AlphaTauri because they picked up P2 as well. With Rockingham, they're now on 124 points, with Red Bull on 113, McLaren then on 103, and once again Ferrari being in last position on 84 points, and they didn't score any points once more. Well, yeah, so basically what happened after the sprint, we had P Apex on pole position with Kel in P2. Now you can see that we have Apex in P9 and Kel in P4. You wonder what could have happened to those two. Maybe a collision? No, it actually wasn't, because like we had in Division 2 for the both Aston Martins, this time around it was a Haas and a Mercedes. Both of them got drive-through penalties off the line for a jump start. I mean, not really ideal. I mean, especially if it happens already now twice in a season, not for the same drivers, obviously, but they pretty much gave J-Tilb a huge chance and served him the win on a plate, didn't they?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, not a great strategy, giving yourself a drive through before the race has started, you have to say, because the lights haven't
Yeah.
gone out. And yeah, not good strategy. Obviously, Kell, I think probably quite a strong performance to recover to P4. Not so fortunate for Apex. I think the obviously with Echo winning the championship and seemingly, as you said, going on holiday, I think that doesn't bode so well for their constructors campaign because certainly Jato took the most of that and grabbed himself full points and made I'm sure the Aston Martin team very happy. So yeah, I think that's definitely a big moment for the constructors championship in this division. So yeah, maybe next time out it'll be the Aston Martins who do it, but I don't think Haas should be relying on that. They should probably be praying that Echo turns up. So yeah, we'll see
Yeah.
what happens, but
Yeah,
definitely not
definitely. I
ideal.
mean, J-Tib won. That's definitely good for his championship as well. Because looking at the driver standings, I mean, he's suddenly in P2. Nobody knows really how. Because looking at his points, he was on last round. He was on 131 in P5 of the championship. He was 23 points behind his teammate, and now he's 7 points ahead of him due to the sprint weekend, sitting in P2. And I don't know what you think about it, but due to it being such a close battle between P2, 3, 4, and 5 of Chadhill himself, his teammate Ludlow, Tank Cannon, and the attacks, surely it means a lot if you can at least pick up second place in this championship, which almost might feel like an actual title because Echo barely was in their universe.
Yeah, definitely. I think yeah. But I think it would be quite a good boost in confidence if you can take the runner-up position, especially if you're a driver who got promoted mid-season, like I believe J-Tub did.
Yes.
So yeah, definitely he'll be probably quite happy with that performance, and he'll be looking to carry it on. I'm sure that Callum Ludlow, 10th Kellen, and the attacks will also be looking to try and reclaim their second position, maybe a bit less for Callum Ludlow because I think maybe the constructors is a bit more important than coming runner up. But you never know. Definitely feels nice to beat your teammate. So there could be an inter-team rivalry there, but hopefully they focus on the constructors. But yeah, I think quite an important battle because the the four of them are quite a distance ahead of the next driver in sixth place. So it can only be them who takes the P2. So yeah, it will be interesting, especially with the margins between them.
Yeah, and especially as I said, I think we both think JTL definitely enjoyed that race win for sure. Especially in tricky wet weather conditions. In Division 6 he could pick up that race win. But also, I mean, Rockingham and Harry both picking up the first podiums of the season, respectively. I mean, surely that's also a boost for them going into the next season, knowing they can fight for podium spots if they are in their division with people around them on the same pace. I mean, especially at China, which as said, obviously is a track which probably favors the pad, but I mean, you still gotta start when the lights actually go out and keep the car on the track, and I think that's what they did because they still had drivers like Viatex, Flying Luge, 10th Cannon, who are proven race winners actually. Um, and didn't get any of those penalties, so I think it's still quite a remarkable performance by them. What do you make of that?
Yeah, definitely. I think yeah, good for them to be beating these proven race winners in this division. Especially, I don't know whether is Harry a rookie or a debutant
Harry
or whatever.
is just a reserve. He's a rookie, but barely races. So I think it
Yeah,
was his second or third appearance this season.
yeah, and obviously you said Rockingham his first race, so yeah, definitely. Oh no, it's not his first race, is it?
No,
And
it's
I'm
his
not
first
sure.
podium. I think he's done like 4 races, 5 races.
Yeah. So, well, both of them haven't done too many races, and they've found themselves in very good positions. So, yeah, definitely good for them. And yeah, as you said, beating these proven race winners certainly bodes well for their future campaigns in GRL. Certainly in future seasons, we could see them at the top of their division. So, yeah, hopefully they can continue this with the last two runs because that will kind of consolidate our thoughts on their performance. Very strong, two very strong drivers. So yeah,
Yeah,
definitely. We'll see what happens.
yeah. Good to see. Definitely at the end of the season, the different drivers make it onto the podium, and maybe make it even a bit more difficult than it even was for the team owners to decide on their picks for season 3.5, but that's another story. Going over to Division 7, it's Bright. Won the sprint, won the race, or at least crossed the line in P1. But yeah, due to the game, he won the race. But then 2 days later, it was confirmed that a 5-second time penalty has been given to the Ferrari driver, which made it, as posted on social media, a 14-point swing because I think by 4/10 of a second, Bright misses actually out on the win because his championship rival Kieran picks it up to make it his second win of the season. So it's Kieran from Bright, and we've got Spud Racing in P3, who like Lever should have served the qualiban, but decided to get on with it and actually pick up a podium by not serving his qualiban. So he'll not participate at the Circuit of the Americas due to him already having 2 qualibans. So that will make it 3 in 2 rounds, and to serve 3 qualibans in 2 rounds is usually quite a difficult task. Then we've got Toxic Finn in P4, with Wargasm in P5, Browns the Buns in P6, Matthew in P7, Sparky in P8, Rio in P9 for McLaren, and Sigramato picking up a single point for Williams. So Williams making it a double points finish like McLaren. So while McLaren fight for the Constructors' Championship, Williams are pretty much at the bottom of the table, but still pick up double points, so that's definitely a nice points tally for them. Looking at the driver standings though, Kieran has basically now extended his championship lead to, if I'm not completely mistaken, 43.5 points. So it's looking very likely that he can officially confirm his championship at Austin, Texas. So it's Bryden on 229.5 points with Orgasm 168. So the top three are pretty much settled in. Franz de Buns on 126. Matthew on 117.5. So this P8 helped him to get away from McMessy, who sits on 115. Then we've got Spud Racing on 83 points, who actually has a solid run of form in the last few rounds of Season 3. Then we've got Terrific Gamer on 65 points, Marley on 50.5, and Ranger still on 45. In the team standings, Ferrari still lead with 396 points from McLaren and 383. So McLaren still not giving up on that championship, and this might as well go down to the wire. With Mercedes on 210 points in P3, Aston Martin on 193, and Alpine on 180. AlphaTauri being right in the middle there with 158 points. And then the bottom four, like in I think Division 5, that was within 15 points, because we've got Haas jumping Red Bull. They're on 114 and 113 points. Williams jumping up to P9 in the championship, but not being last anymore, on 104 points. And Alfa Romeo on 99 points only, so the only team not having plus 100 points. So yeah, the last two rounds, we all said the seventh team of Williams, the pairing isn't ideal. They don't score enough points really, but yeah, double points finish, and especially towards the last two races of the season, they seem to at least pick up some form. But yeah, Spud Racing, despite having the actually the plan of crashing in the last few rounds, like last two laps of a race, has picked up some form, but the race ban definitely doesn't help the Williams team, and you might as well drop down to P10 again. But what do you make of the last 2 weeks of Williams Division 7 drama?
Yeah, I think there should be an award for getting to serve two quali bans in a row, because that's certainly quite impressive. I think definitely, but yeah, in all seriousness, not ideal for Spud obviously to get a race ban, but I think it was all a master plan because he got third place, and with his kind of, well, seemingly either crash into a wall or get a podium kind of performances. Um, maybe it was part of his plan because he knew he was going to crash next week anyway, so he's gonna take the 15 points and then serve the race ban and come back in Brazil and win, and Williams will be very happy. So yeah, we'll have to see what happens. Obviously, for us at Williams, in this division, we're kind of floating towards the bottom, obviously, but there's definitely a big chance we could get into, what is that, seventh position? Is it? I
Yes.
think. I don't know. Yeah. So yeah, but I think obviously with Spud's race ban and yeah, not ideal. Obviously, good result for Siguramato as well, who's I think he's struggled a bit this season, but definitely good to see him
Yeah,
pick up some
Siguramato
points.
sitting on
So
11 points after 19 rounds, so he definitely
yeah,
needs some Spud racing lessons, maybe not on consistency, but on pace. While Spud can at least have 2 full weeks of practice for Interlagos. So he's going to be prepared for that final round of the season. But
yeah. He just has to make sure not to qualify. Don't practice your quali pace, but if you're
yeah,
listening to this,
that
just the
that
race
that would
pace.
be ideal. So that's the advice of the week. If you have a
Yep.
qualifying, you might as well not practice your qualifying pace. Um,
Yep.
but yeah, looking at the attendance so far, Silk will very likely reserve for the Williams team. What to make of that? Do you think he can score some points? I mean, in case Spud would have crashed in a wall, he could have quite easily replaced him. But do you think still could pick up some points for Williams, or do you think regardless of whoever would replace, but it would probably be a downgrade at least on pace?
Yeah, well, I'm not too familiar with Silk's pace, but yeah, I mean,
I mean, the
you
only
know,
thing
in
you can say is that I think that was Imola. Silk half straight lined Kieran, so I don't know if that was the perfect plan of Williams, but that's just a little taste.
well, yeah, that doesn't sound great. Although then again, you could say that he was battling with Kieran, so
Yeah, well, he was 5 seconds behind him, but yeah, you could say so.
yeah, just call the corners, ignore the penalties, and easy win.
Yeah, drive
not
fast,
not
don't
yeah.
crash.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think well, by the sounds of it, we're not gonna have a good time next time out. But you never know. You never know. He could, with Division 7, there's a lot of interesting strategies that goes on because of the amount of safety cars there often is, and usually you get the strong drivers like Wargasm, Kieran, and Bright coming out on top regardless of what happens in the race, but there's got to be at least one race where we have some extremely random race winner. So, with the
Yeah,
amount of chaos. So,
I mean,
yeah, hopefully for us that happens.
I personally think Beeford, for example, would be cheering for Ozzy. Don't know why, but I have a feeling.
No, yeah, yeah,
Um,
true.
but
Same poly pace.
actually, for the first time since like 7 weeks, we haven't started off with It's Bright versus Kieran, and we're gonna do that now because It's Bright said, I can actually quote him there. Let me check. Oh man, championship is over. I mean, do you agree with that? I mean, because it's 43.5 points. It's not ideal, but do you think he can still turn it around? I mean, it's possible, but seems quite a big margin considering the 2 rounds left.
Yeah, it's going to be very tough, I think, for Bright because I think we've mentioned so many times we've praised Kieran's consistency, so to pretty much rely on Kieran not scoring any points in 2 races in a row is yeah. I think the odds aren't in Bright's favour. It's
Yeah,
not looking so bright for Bright.
yeah.
So yeah.
Oh God.
I mean, you
I
know,
mean, it it
yeah. I
looks it
think
looks very brownist then.
yeah, maybe his pants. I don't know, but
But
yeah.
yeah, talking about Kieran's consistency, I mean, once more, just go through these results of Kieran. It's actually ridiculous. You've got a P2, a P7, a P4. Then at Belgium we had a P5, following actually a non-points finish in Portugal. Then we had a P2, another P2, a P1 at Abu Dhabi, a P3 at Hungary, a P3 at Miami, where we also had a sprint race, a P3 at Japan, a P3 at Australia, a DNF at Italy, so that's the second non-points finish, a P2 at Imola, then another retirement at Bahrain, so that makes it three. A P2 at Canada, a P2 at Zandvoort, a P3 at France, and now a win at China. So in 19 rounds, he's I think had 13 podiums and 3 non-points finishes. So that's actually ridiculous, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. You know, that's the sign of a champion, really. If you're finishing on the podium, 13 of 21 or 20s. Oh, how many are we on? We're on 19, aren't we?
Yeah, with
13 podiums of
19.
19 rounds. Yeah,
I mean, you say
that's
that,
incredibly
but
impressive.
I know some Williams driver who's just started to not do anything in the first 5, 6 rounds, and then suddenly turns up at the end of the season and suddenly gets pole and wins races. I mean, that's also how it could work out. That's probably
Yeah.
not the most relaxing thing.
Yeah, I don't know. I wonder who that is you're talking about. I'm not too sure, but yeah, I'm sure with that driver, I'm sure yeah, Kieran's made it easier for himself than that driver we're talking of. So
Some wash,
you
yeah.
know, but yeah, I think I mean we're talking as if he's already champion. Obviously, it's not over yet, and we have to see how he performs in the next two rounds. But I think if I don't know. I was gonna say if you're a betting man, you definitely bet on Kieran, but I don't think you'd get much money back to be honest, because it's already looking so likely. So
Yeah. I
yeah,
gotta see it be some great, some big money on Bright if he wins. Um,
yeah.
welcome to
So
TRL betting, everyone. But yeah,
coming next season, definitely.
oh yeah. I mean, I've definitely not predicted someone like Grizzy Rascal as champion. Um, but
Yeah,
yeah, that's a different
definitely.
story. But
If
yeah,
Atom makes the odds, don't listen to him.
yes. But yeah, that's Division 7 wrapped up. So let's have a look then on the overall Constructors' Championship. Because this time round, if I'm not completely off topic, now I'm not, Alpine hasn't scored over 100 points for like the first time this month on the last few weeks. So they sit on 1,762 points, while Aston Martin definitely have gained. They sit on 1,693 points, with Williams on 1,643.5. And those five numbers actually five complete different ones. So that was great to read out. Then I've got Alfa Romeo on 1,491, with McLaren on 1,483.5. I've got Ferrari on 1,411 and Mercedes on 1,404.5. So Mercedes could at least get past Ferrari in the upcoming weeks. Red Bull then in P8 with 1,328 points, and AlphaTauri on 1,290 is also not the best of weekends for the Fenza-based team, with Hasten rounding off the table on 1,145.5 points. I mean, looking at the overall constructors, especially over the last few weeks, you have to say we should be quite glad that Alpina didn't have the best of weekends, and both Aston Martin and Williams at least could close that gap slightly.
Yeah, definitely. I think earlier in the season I said it's quite hard to read the overall standings, but I think now we're coming towards the end of the season, it's getting a bit easier to read what's going on, and yeah, definitely not the strongest weekend for Alpine, but I don't think it's the end of the world for them because they do have quite a big margin at the moment. Obviously, though, you know, with two rounds left, yeah, there can be pretty big point swings as we've seen in the past, and yeah, they've got to keep pushing because Aston Martin aren't too far behind, and Williams aren't too far behind them. So I still think it's very much in the overall a three-way battle for the overall constructors championship because I think Alfa Romeo, who were probably the only ones really that could challenge as top three. I think they had a pretty poor weekend for their standards, scoring I think quite a bit less than 100 points from what I can see. Maybe one
Yeah,
of
and
the
for them, I think
least.
it's also
So
quite difficult if they score every point available. It might be quite close to even get to 1,762 points, because obviously,
yeah,
I think we have got per weekend just on race wins around 250 win points available with first and second place. So it is still possible, obviously, but I doubt Alpine, Aston
yeah.
Martin, Williams will suddenly just stop doing anything. Um, so yeah, let's hope Aston Martin Williams can close the gap even more. And then we've got a massive battle for the overall Constructors' Championship as well in Brazil, the Interlagos. So yeah, that's F1 covered. And now let's head over to Formula 2 because that's actually a topic I'm excited about this weekend. Yeah, in the sprint race, we will obviously also in China, not only for the sprint but also the feature. Yeah, you got pole again, I think, from Gibson in P2, myself in third. Dara actually in P4, this time out qualifying Sparky, so he had a
Yep.
massive qualifying session to out qualify the all-time great, considering football and darts and maybe F1, and also F2. So I think Distant Bard, no, he wasn't participating. So it was basically at the top only us four, with also Penguin having a solid qualifying. But yeah, the sprint race. You had good first sector, I heard. What actually happened there?
Uh, I mean, it was very interesting. I have to say that race was because obviously the sprint race, as probably most people know, you reverse the top 10. So I was starting in P10 after qualifying on pole, and by the end of the first sector, I was in the lead. So yeah, it doesn't happen very often, but yeah, there was quite a few collisions I think, but. I managed to avoid these collisions and yeah, had a pretty good first sector, got past pretty much everyone, and obviously that made my race a lot easier. So yeah, I think yeah, it was a nice sprint race. I think also, I think in F2 I always have pretty good pace, but this is probably the track I've struggled on the most recently with its incredibly understeering nature. So yeah, it was
You just got to
good
turn
to get
in the
through.
middle of the corner, just move the wheel.
Yeah, well, you turn the wheel and you just keep going straight, so
Yeah.
not
Um,
ideal.
but yeah, talking about that earlier, I mean, we had a collision going onto the straight because the, as Blade would call it, the Lego corner. Was it the Lego corner?
Yeah, the
Yeah, it
Lego
was the Lego
corner,
corner.
everyone's favorite.
Yeah, we had slight contact between the two rivals of Darren and Sparky. Um, we I think both remember that scream from my teammate in the party, that very enthusiastic when he was facing the wall. But yeah, that's not our problem really. Sparky just showed him who the real boss is on track.
Yep,
Um, but yeah, Dara fought himself back up into P5. But overall, I think the sprint wasn't the most interesting thing. Probably the most interesting thing on track was Valkyrie's lag, because there wasn't too much battling going on, except Valkyrie just hopping from one side of the track to the other. That was very enjoyable, especially sitting behind him. But then we had the feature race, and it was slightly wet. Was complete full wet at the beginning, and it dried up come the end. While I think, what did actually Gibson do? Can you explain it? Because I find it quite hard to explain what actually Gibson's plan was.
yeah. Well, I mean, it certainly was interesting. I think it's fair to say the king of 5-second penalties for speeding decided to pit. So, I think that's where, when you have a wet race and you have the chance to stay out, because you're probably going to get a penalty anyways if you pit. I don't know why you'd pit, but I think, much to our surprise, I don't think he picked up a 5-second penalty. So,
Yes, he didn't,
I
because
think,
he
yeah,
said he was like slowing down very early. So
oh,
yeah, I think
good
many
stuff.
people don't
Yeah.
know Gibson just does not practice race or qualifies in F2. He just practices the pit entry. That's the most
Yeah,
crucial point that loses him the
and he
most.
still gets 5 seconds. I think that's the most impressive part about it
Yeah.
all. So,
uh,
yeah. Um, yeah, and then obviously, as I mentioned, or as Atom mentioned, was a wet to dry race. But I think we've seen quite a few times that usually the wrong compound in the wrong conditions seems to have pretty okay pace, unless it's dries in fully wet conditions. Then the pace isn't so good on the
yeah.
dries. But
I think
yeah,
wet tires on dry track is definitely more favorable than the other way around, because yeah,
yeah, yeah.
with wet tires they really just overheat, don't they? And with slicks on aqua and an
Yeah,
aquaplaning
yeah,
track. I mean, it wasn't that bad because it dried up, I guess, but it's just way
yeah,
easier
yeah,
to lock up while we were just drifting around with our 105 degrees tires and maximum tire pressures.
yeah, yeah.
But
It was interesting.
it
Yeah,
looked quite it looked
apart,
quite
sorry.
spread out because at the beginning, for example, just jumping back to the start, Gibson, I heard, was trying to move into the hairpin on you. That didn't quite work out.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
because
that was interesting.
yeah, you said he went quite deep into the corner. He went in the track, really. Um,
Yeah,
and then I also saw him touching a wall, actually, in the middle sector, outside, not inside. They actually exist at China.
yeah,
And Gibson met them for a short second, but in the rain, I mean, overall, I think the pace was quite balanced between Dara Gibson, except his extremities, mine and your pace. But yeah, Gibson has said pretty much took himself out of the equation with just doing some off-road racing and then also pitting when it was still raining quite hard. It was pretty much, yeah, it was quite dry and really come the end of the race because that's also what Dara pitted. So basically left us two out there on our wets. But you had some mistakes there, didn't you? Because I was gaining quite a bit, even though I wasn't particularly faster. I think you had some moments there, and some
yeah.
tire overheating going on quite early, I think, before it even stopped raining.
Yeah, I think yeah, definitely. I think this is probably the most I've struggled in F2 since I started, when I didn't really understand how F2 cars worked. Yeah, I think it was less that I think I wasn't making too many mistakes, but I just didn't really have the confidence to push the car, and I tried to avoid the mistakes, and just ended up driving too slowly, really. So you you closed in. Dara was also closing in as well. I think Dara probably had the best pace of all of us until he decided to pretty much throw his race away by pitting.
Yeah,
So it was pretty much a head to head with me and you, and yeah, with me struggling. And you having, I have to say, very, very strong pace that race, even in the dry. Um, yeah, you caught up to me, and I think with 2 laps to go, passed me down the good old kilometre long straight, with lower downforce as well. And
and
I
DRS
yeah,
being
yeah,
enabled.
and yeah, yeah, I didn't really have an answer, so because my pace wasn't there, and obviously my straight line speed wasn't there, so I think yeah, I think you have to say credit to you, the right person won the race, because I don't think I deserved it with my pace, and Darren didn't really deserve it with his strategy, and Gibson designing his own track and also pitting for dries in the wet weather. I think that was probably the I think he gets the trophy for most creative strategy. We'll say that at least.
Yeah, most penalties of the season and the most creative F2 driver, that's for sure. But yeah, was actually even the last lap was still quite close. So was some good racing in the end. Not too much side by side, which probably would have killed us both. I just remember someone when I went into that hairpin at the final lap, just don't lock up. Can't really remember who that had been. Um, but I didn't and could luckily win the first feature race of the season. I mean, he only had 13, not feature race wins, but 13 wins this season in F2. So I think you could sacrifice one of them.
Yeah, very generous. I'm letting people have them now. So now that I've won the
Yeah.
championship,
Mhm,
I forgot
mhm,
about that.
mhm. Yeah, yeah, I
So
see. So yeah, you'll still hunt your maximum points in the upcoming
yeah,
weeks.
not next week, unfortunately.
Oh yeah, because
But
Clem is back in. I forgot. Um,
oh
but yeah,
yeah,
that's
I'll
F2
be back for the last week.
pretty much done. Oh yeah, and I forgot that Blade is world champion in F2. We forgot that actually.
Yeah,
Wrapped up the
made in
championship.
China didn't even win the race. So yeah, just the way I wanted, I think.
Yeah, the championship was just made in China, really.
Yeah,
But
I'm sure the trophy was as well. So you know.
yeah, obviously. But he didn't win the biggest one. But yeah, lovely Baguette Blade won the championship in OF2 division. Very well deserved, I have to say. Dara Gibson, but myself didn't quite have an answer throughout the whole season. So that's the first title wrapped up. The second might come at Kota, and maybe the third one will come at Brazil. So gonna
Yep,
be very, very interesting.
yep,
Next,
that's the plan.
as we mentioned like 10,000 times already, FOF1 and F2 will head over to the Circuit of the Americas at Austin, Texas, or as we like to call it, simply USA. Um, yeah, I mean it's gonna be some interesting racing and probably a quite busy night for the ticket team because you can take different lines like in France and you can probably crash into each other with different approaches. um, yeah, overall, considering every division and spec cars and Formula One cars, what do you think can we look forward to for Kota?
Yeah, I think, as you mentioned, I think we can look forward to another overtake of the week submission by myself from France. So I think something similar might be happening there. So I'm sure everyone will be looking forward to that. But yeah, in all seriousness, yeah, Kota is an interesting circuit. I think it's quite technical, you have to say, with the S's and the turkey corner, the I don't know, quadruple or
GRL
quintuple
corner, yeah,
apex. Yeah, the GRL corner. Yeah, the everyone. I think everyone was warming their tires in that first season. Not that they were already about 108 degrees. So
at least.
yeah, yeah, it would. I think it'd be interesting. Those who are in a championship battle, like myself, B Ford, Sora in the top divisions, and all I'm not going to name them all, but obviously another division, Division Two. Both those drivers will be, I think, they'll be putting their heads down. They'll be looking to make, every single setup change, every single tenth gained. So yeah, it will. I think it will be quite an interesting weekend, and I think in a couple of divisions we can see, you know, uh, maybe someone unexpected winning the race, and yeah, hopefully the championships as well will close up. I'm definitely hoping that the Division One championship will close up, especially with me being the third of the top three drivers. But yeah, I'm personally pretty excited for it, and hopefully others are as well.
Yeah, gonna be very interesting. I mean, America, especially Texas, also very famous for some snakes, and yeah, if you see some of them, you might see two actually on the straights, and with their setups, that they might be called Amos Lloyd and Gary the Goat, because they won't be very fast on the straights if they stick to their current car setups. Um, but yeah, I think that's a good way to round off this podcast. So next week with Dara, Jim Sinity, Adam Reed, and many others, you'll be broadcasted through the whole Austin, Texas race weekend, provided with all the data and championship contenders and contentions. So that's going to be very interesting, and yeah, we hope to not see Division One champion already this week, because that would be a quite boring weekend probably for Beeford and Blade. Um,
Yeah,
and I think so. Yeah, Sora would need to win, which is obviously what nobody wants to see at this place. We just want to see them in P8, 9, and 10. Um, so I can win an F1 race as well. So, but yeah, that's going to be very interesting. They will be fighting at the top usually. So, B for the not in qualifying, but maybe in the race. But yeah, that will be very interesting for sure. So definitely tune in at Monday, 8 p.m. and for Division 1, 8:30 p.m. British Summer Time. And for F2, well, it will be close at the top once again because Blade isn't here at 10:30 p.m. British Summer Time as well. So definitely tune in there, and I would say see you in the next one.